I am Paul the Asset Nicholson and I'm ranking dart players today, but I'm not doing it blind. So the first dart player we're going to rank is Keane Barry. So what has Keane achieved? Everything in the youth game almost. Isn't a world youth champion in the PDC yet, but could be by the end of the year. But because he hasn't achieved anything in the senior ranks yet, and I say the word yet, we're probably going to have to put him as a C, I think. I'm not allowed to change these, am I? As I go, I might have to change them. However, the next one is Josh Rock. He is a PDC World Youth Champion and has won a senior event. So by token of that, I think you've got to put him one level above Keane Barry. So what we're going to do with Josh Rock is we are going to put him at grade B at this point. Next player is Michael Smith. What hasn't he achieved? He's won on the floor, he's won on the European Tour, the World Series, he's won the world title, he's won another ranked major. So pretty much everything you can possibly win. However, hasn't won anything in a multiple sense yet. And I get the feeling that the players that are about to come may have done that. So Michael Smith for me will have to be an A. Okay, so not bad for Michael Smith. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that. Rob Cross, two-time European champion, has won back-to-back World Series titles in Australia and New Zealand in the last 6 or 7 months. Obviously a world champion in 2018. So in the same sort of sense as Michael Smith, I think he's an A. I'm not thinking that he's reached that super tier level yet. But with a match play and a world title and 2 Europeans, I think that is about right for the A category. Next is Man Lok Leung of Hong Kong, a really good talent, and we hope, based on what we saw at the World Championship and in Bahrain, that a big future is ahead. However, very young in his career, and I'm going to have to put him at the bottom tier for now, but watch this space. Kevin Dutz, I'm a big fan of. He's done things on the Challenge Tour, the Development Tour as well. I really like his compact throw. I love his focus. And if this was a contest for grading players who can stay through the board, he would be super tier and he wouldn't be my number one, simple as that. However, based on what he's accomplished in the game so far, I'm going to have to put him at the same level as Keane Barry as a C. Raymond van Barneveld, well, Raymond's been around since I was a kid, and I don't think he minds me saying that. He's been doing stuff at Lakeside, Alexandra Palace and the Tavern, so he's played at 3 World Championship venues and won at 2 of them. So when you consider what he's done in the game, and he's got the greatness tag because he is one of the greats. He's the first person to go into the super tier, and I don't think anybody on planet Darts can disagree with that. Following that, Gary Anderson. Well, again, what hasn't he done? I know it's very much a glasses half empty statement to say that he hasn't won the Grand Slam, he hasn't won the European Championship, but he's won pretty much everything else, hasn't he? And he's been a BDO great and a PDC great, and is still one of the best players in the world. He actually set a personal best this week. There you go, super tier for him. And I'm not going to go against his incredible amount of fans because I'm one of them. So, super tier for Gary Anderson. Ricky Evans is somebody I've spoken about a lot recently, and how I think he's got to make changes to be the kind of player that he wants to be in the future, to be a PDC senior winner. He is a former World Youth finalist and has a great deal to offer the game, but where do we put him in this list? Well, I'm going to be harsh on Ricky Evans because I don't think he's in Josh Rock's category of B because he hasn't won a PDC title yet. So more work to do, Ricky. You know about this, and I know he watches these videos. So if you want a bit more motivation, rapid, I've put you in C. How can I be somewhat, what's the right word here? Well, I can't be on the fence, can I? Because this person is one of my favourite dart players, and he's always wearing the right colours. It's Chris Dobey, Masters champion, multiple time floor winner, Premier League player. Because he hasn't got a ranked big title yet, and I say ranked somewhat loosely because there are a lot of unranked big events, I think Chris Dobey's best days are ahead of him, and he's not at the same level at this point as a Michael Smith or Rob Cross. So I'm going to have to put Chris Dobey in a B. I think he'll be okay with that because he understands that his best days are ahead of him. Nathan Aspinall, however, has won a match play, has won plenty of titles on the floor, yet to win on the European Tour though. somewhat strange that he's only made one final as well in Munich in 2023. However, someone who's made 2 semi-finals at the World Championships and has won at the US Darts Masters. So, for that reason, I'm going to put him in the same bracket as Rob Cross and Michael Smith, just ahead of someone like Chris Dobey. If he hadn't won the match play, it may be a slightly different story, but for me, Nathan Aspinall, a multiple Premier League player, I'm going to have to put him in A alongside Rob Cross and Michael Smith. Phil Taylor, super tier, moving on. Luke Humphries, well, world number 1 right now and has won a bucket full of stuff in the last 6 months. But it's not just the last 6 months, is it? It's European Tour success over a period of 2 years. And for the reason that he's not got that greatness tag over the course of maybe 20, 30 years or even 15 years, Humphries has to go into A, because I still think that he's going to get to super tier in the next 10 years. Michael van Gerwen, where do we start? Well, how about we start in 2012 when he won the World Grand Prix, beating Mervyn King in the final. That's where it all began, really. I know he won the World Masters before that as a kid, and he had his own little Luke Littler moment, but he was great before that, he was great after that, but became the player that he is now from 2012 until now. Does he have greatness in him? Yes. Has he always had it? Pretty much in my eyes, and he always will. That's why he's in the super tier. Adrian Lewis, a multiple world champion, a UK Open champion and a European champion. Don't forget that one. When he won that European Championship, he was the best player in that tournament by an absolute mile and had a great dart shirt in that tournament as well, so look back at that one. I love this guy, contrary to what people think, because of our spat at the World Cup in 2012. One of the nicest people in the world, and this is probably going to be the hardest decision of everything in this one. Does he go in the super tier or does he go in the A? Because it depends on whether he's going to offer more to the ranked game in the future. We just don't know, and for that reason he goes in A. Stephen Bunting is someone I've known since 1999 when he was a 16-year-old kid playing for Merseyside County. He's only just won his biggest PDC title at the Masters, and many congratulations to him for doing that. Where do we put Stephen Bunting in this list? He hasn't won a great deal of PDC titles in the last 10 years, but he's won a few of them. I don't think you can put him in the same bracket as Adrian Lewis or Luke Humphries or Nathan Aspinall, Rob Cross or Michael Smith. But can you put him alongside someone like Chris Dobey, who's also won the Masters and a similar amount of floor titles? I think yes. So we're going to put Bunting in B. Dimitri van den Bergh is a world match play champion. Where do we put this guy? I mean, he hasn't won a European Tour title either. He's won World Series events. And isn't it amazing how many players of this sort of level have won some events from certain places, but they haven't won something that's perceived as easier? Always known as a stage player, not so much a floor player. Who do we put him alongside? I think it's fairly easy. A one-time major champion in the PDC, you've got to put him alongside Bunting, Rock and Dobey. Scott Williams, one of the most entertaining players on the circuit and has got a great sock collection, trust me. Semi-finalist at the World Championship recently and is only just starting to find out what kind of player he can possibly be. Has not got a great deal of titles, but he has got a PDC title to his name when he didn't have his card. He's part of an exclusive club with Christoph Ratajski and Joe Mernon in the fact that he has won a title without tour privileges guaranteed. I think we have to put him next to the likes of Evans, Dutz and Keane Barry. Now, I'm not doing him a disservice here, but can we put him alongside the likes of van den Bergh, Bunting, Dobey? Well, I would put him alongside a Josh Rock, but I see Josh as maybe just a little bit further ahead of him. It's such a small gap, but I'm going to have to put Scott Williams in C. Eric Bristow, where do we start? One of the people who gave us all of this. We go back 50 years to the mid-70s. We had the Indoor League in Yorkshire. We had so many people playing on that, but when we started getting World Championships broadcast in 1978, who stood up and said this sport is just a little bit special? It was Eric Bristow. Five world titles and the greatness of the man who we will unfortunately never see again, and someone who I had a somewhat checkered relationship with in my life. But one of the best things about Eric is what he did for our sport, and he was so dart smart. maybe smarter than anybody who will ever live. He's got to be super tier, and you know why. Gerwyn Price, a great player. I'm a big fan of him. You might not be, but I'm sure by the end of his career, you will be. It's as simple as that. Not everybody's made the same, so understand that he's not going to follow the prototype of what a dart player should be. He wants to be himself, and he's a great player. Not quite in the super tier category, but as a world champion and a 3-time Grand Slam champion, I think you've got to put him in here. Jonathan Clayton. Sorry, Johnny. This is a tough one. As much as a Premier League champion and a Grand Prix champion should probably be in category A, I wish there was an A- column here. Because do I see him ahead of a Nathan Aspinall? I see him on a par. Do I see him on the same level as a Luke Humphries, Adrian Lewis? No, but can I put him in B? I don't think I can. So he's going to have to go in A. David Chisnell. How many people in this world can call him David? Maybe one or two, and I don't think I'm one of them. So, Dave Chisnell hasn't won a big ranked event yet, and I'm sure he's sick of people talking about it. So, what has he won? An awful lot of titles. 20 PDC titles was my last count. He might even be more than that by now. So, it's harsh not to put him in A, but until he wins that big one or a world title, I'm afraid he's going to have to go in B. Joe Cullen, a Masters champion, and obviously has won on the floor and won at the European Tour. And he's beaten Michael van Gerwen in a couple of finals on the European Tour when he was dominant as well. Just take note of that. Joe Cullen has to go in the category the same as Dave Chisnell. It's as simple as that. You can't possibly put him alongside Ricky Evans, Scott Williams, Kevin Dutz and Keane Barry. But can you put him in A? I'm not sure we can. So it's going to have to be the same as Bunting and Dobie. Former Masters champion has to go in B. Lisa Ashton. It's about time we've got a girl up here, isn't it? 4-time ladies champion. She's won pretty much everything you can win in the ladies game, apart from the PDC World Match Play. So she could possibly win that in the future, and she could even get more world titles in the bank as well. Just depends what Lisa wants to do with her career. From the ladies game's perspective, there aren't many better. In fact, only Trina Gulliver has won more world titles. So for that reason, super tier for Lisa Ashton. Paul Lim. Ooh, maybe I want to keep that in. That was quite a nice moment. Maybe he's present. Paul Lim is one of the most iconic people in our sport since the 1980s. And for what he's done, not just in a title sense in the Far East, because he's one of the best soft tip players of all time as well, alongside the likes of Kritschmer and Gates. That may not come into other people's thinking, but super tier for me is about what you've done for the game as a whole. Can we put Paul alongside Ashton, the likes of Van Gerwen, Bristow, Taylor, Anderson and Raymond van Barneveld? Some people might see this as controversial, but for what he's done over the course of the last 40 years as a dart player worldwide, and is continuing to do, his importance cannot be measured. He's a super tier player. Maybe he's just a super tier person. Peter Wright has won an awful lot and has had stages in his career. Started in the 90s, seen as someone who did well to make Lakeside. Fast forward 30 years, he becomes one of the best players that we've ever seen. If you're putting Gary Anderson in the super tier with 2 world titles and what he's won, you have to put Peter Wright in the same category. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be controversial here and put him in a different category to Gary. 2-time world champion, he's got to be up there. Steve Beaton is a super tier great in my opinion, but has he done as much for the game as Paul Lim has? It's arguable. However, the amount of PDC titles that Steve has had, I think he would admit that maybe he should have had a few more. One of my favourite people that I've ever met, have ever played against, and I'm going to be completely selfish here, just like anybody who was sitting in this seat would be. Do you put him alongside the likes of Nathan Aspinall, Rob Cross, Michael Smith? Of course you do. He won the Lakeside in '96. Willie O'Connor has made a World Cup final and has won 1 PDC title. I love watching him play, and he's a nightmare opponent for anybody. Where do you put him in this list? It's simple. You put him in either B or C. This is an in-betweeny for me because he hasn't done as much as, say, a Dobie or a Joe Cullen, but he's done more than the likes of Dutz, Williams and Keane Barry. So I'm going to be generous to Mr. O'Connor, and I'm going to put him in B. Gabriel Clemens has not won a PDC title yet, so for me, this is fairly simple. Even though he's made a semi-final of a Worlds, he has to be C. Can anybody find a Pokemon around here? Oh, that's right, Pikachu. Ricardo Pietreczko has won the German Darts Championship in the last 6 months. I'm still putting him in the same category as Gabriel Clemens, even though he's won a title, because I still think that the semi-final of the Worlds and that European Tour title and the young nature of Pikachu's career cancel themselves out. So Ricardo Pietreczko is in C. Now we're getting interesting with Luke Littler, aren't we? Now, we can't get too carried away. He's only been playing Players' Championships for 2 days by the time this is filmed. He's played in 2 World Series events and 1 World Championship, but has got multiple titles already. Where do you put him? You might think this is crazy, but I'm going to put him in B. He's not anywhere near his legacy yet. So why do we do this in about 15 years' time? For now, he's in B. Last but not least, Fallon Sherrock. What has she done for the game? An awful lot, and an awful lot for the ladies' game as well. Don't forget that the women's series pretty much came off the back of 2019. So would that have happened if it hadn't been for that success? She has won an awful lot in her career and done things at the Grand Slam, the World Championship, and other places as well. However, we need to be realistic in this regard. She has not won a world title. She has not won a PDC ranked title overall, because let's face it, the PDC titles are open to both categories. So where do you put Fallon Sherrock? I'm afraid she has to go in C, and I think that's fair. That's me done. I've ranked all these dart players. Whether you agree or disagree, I don't personally care, because they're my opinion. So why don't you have a go?